Hi, and welcome back to the channel. My lovely guest today is Yoga. Good morning. How are you?
Hi, how are you, Miranda?
I'm great. Thank you so much for joining me today.
Yeah, thank you so much. I really appreciate being here. I'm excited to talk to you. And yeah, looking forward to this.
Me too. We're going to be talking about your near-death experience that you had. I will be upfront. I don't know a lot about your story, but I do know that it was about what, 2003? Is that what you said?
Yeah,
Okay.
2003.
And then I noticed on your website that there was a car accident involved. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay, so do you want to kind of take us back to that day? You can go back a little further if you need to, but just kind of setting us up for how it sort of came to be that you had this experience.
Yes. So this experience, I feel like happened, my life was part of my life was on a bad path. And so I was doing drugs. To me, it was like escapism from pain. I had trauma. So I think that having that escapism at the time was my solution. And so I had gone on a really bad date, and I had kind of told myself or programmed myself to believe that I wasn't finding love because I wasn't skinny enough. And so I had called two of my friends and I said, Hey, I really need to lose weight. I just went on another bad date. And this probably all sounds really silly, but this was exactly what was happening, which led up to the near death experience. And I said, Do you think I should do some speed and go to Vegas for the weekend and I'll lose 5 pounds in 2 days and then maybe I'll be skinny enough? Anyway, this was the type of thinking that was going on at the time. And so both of the women that I called and had this conversation with, they both encouraged me and said, to do it. Now, this, I'm not saying this part because I'm blaming them because it had nothing to do with them. This was my decision to do this drug, get in my car, and drive from LA to Las Vegas thinking that I needed to lose weight in order to find love. But I'm really wanting to communicate this part because especially today with social media, and there's so much pressure on being thin or being skinny with women. There's so much pressure on trying to find love. When all of that stuff, the love really comes from within us. Nothing outside of us or in our external environment can really dictate how much we can love ourselves. That was one of my biggest lessons from my near-death experience. The other part of this lesson was never to go outside of ourselves and ask for the opinion of someone else or to ask for advice from someone else unless that person is somebody that you admire. It's that somebody, that person is like living the type of life or having the types of habits or the types of mindsets that you would want to have. So, of course, growing through all of that, yeah. So that night I went to a party in LA. At midnight, I did a line of speed or crystal meth is what they call it. Immediately got into my car and I was embarking on this 4 hour car ride to go from Los Angeles to Las Vegas to meet one of my friends that I'd known since I was 8 years old who was flying in from New York to Vegas. If anyone's ever driven from LA to Vegas, it's a two-lane road and it goes through the mountains, through the desert, and there's absolutely nothing out there. There's even signs on the side of the road that say, make sure your tank is full because there's no gas stations. There's nothing. It's just a stretch. And so at 3 a.m., there was not a soul on the road. It was my windows were down, my sunroof was open, my music was blasting, and now I was in a state of euphoria from the drug. And I'm singing and I'm dancing in the car driving. There's only an hour left to go to reach Las Vegas. And this is when I feel like the angels convened. This is when all of a sudden my lungs collapsed. I could not take a breath in. I went into the absolute terror. And at that point, my car went off the road. I had a fatal car crash. I died in the car crash from my lungs collapsing, not being able to take a breath. I specifically remember my legs being crushed underneath the steering wheel. At that point, I rose up and I found myself in a hell realm. I found myself in this realm immediately where the most interesting thing about the hell realm was that when I got there, I wasn't scared. I was more in shock from what I was observing. I was observing this pyre of spinning flames. with people hanging off the flames, screaming and reaching for help. The interesting thing about the Hell Realm was that there was no color. It was all grays, but then there was the red flames. There was a shadowy figure standing in the corner, and I couldn't see the details of the figure. It was just this shadow. It was like this human shadow, and I can tell that it was a man because I could feel the male energy. And the walls were very weird shaped. It wasn't like here where we would have four walls. There was like a wall and then there was nothing. And then there was another piece of a wall and then there was nothing. And this was all the way around the room, these odd feelings of the walls. And there was really, it felt like there was no ceiling. There might have been a ceiling, but it was like, I just felt this like expanse going up. The other thing was that it was cold, but it was hot. It was it was like shocking, but it wasn't. There was like all these, everything within this realm of hell was contrasts. It was polar opposites. All these polar opposites were existing at once. And I was just seeing and observing. I felt like the observer. I felt like almost like I wasn't really part of the scene because I wasn't hanging off the pyre screaming. I wasn't, interacting with this shadow figure that was in the room. I was just kind of there observing this realm of hell. And then immediately this angel came into the room and reached out his hand. And as soon as this angel reached out his hand towards me, immediately I was in the waiting room of heaven. And when this experience of going from one place to another, for some reason that felt very natural to me. It felt very natural to be in my car dying and then all of a sudden be in this hell realm and then all of a sudden be in heaven. I remember that feeling of naturalness. And I remember having the thought of how everything felt like it moved so slow back on earth. And there was a part of my soul that was like, oh, this is cool. This is great. This is okay. I'm, instantly like moving through these spaces and times here. At that point also, I was not thinking at all about my body back on Earth. I just, yeah, there was just an interesting, like in the hell realm, that was like what I was experiencing. And now in the waiting room of heaven, I wasn't looking back at my body on Earth. So there was really no connection that I had at all at that point with whatever was happening back on Earth in the car with the lung failure, with the car crash. And the other interesting thing was I felt like that realm of hell that I saw was actually connected to heaven, that it was part of heaven. It was part of the process of me getting to heaven and getting to the waiting room. For me, my experience of this waiting room was it was busy, it was productive, it was the exact opposite of the hell realm. Everything was complete. Everything was one. It was whole. There was no contrasts. Everything felt warm and good and fuzzy, and it was bright and it was happy. It was productive. Yeah, it was like I felt this familiarity with the souls that were coming and going. I felt the familiarity. I felt like I was one with the angel. Even the busyness of the office, it was like a good busyness. It was like things are happening, things are getting done. I didn't feel connected at all to the essence of the hell realm. I didn't feel connected to the shadow figure, to the people that were hanging off the pyre. None of that felt familiar. So now I'm all of a sudden having this happy, busy, light-filled, beautiful feeling, like I'm in a place where all of my family members are there in this waiting room of heaven. The other interesting thing was that I knew so much and I wasn't told anything. I would immediately just knew all of this information that was coming to me. Like I absolutely knew that at the end of this long tunnel of light that I was in, that heaven was down there. I knew heaven was down there, and I knew that I was not going there that day, that I was not meant to go down that long tunnel. So I didn't even try to go down the tunnel. The other interesting thing was that I clearly remember the desk that the angel was sitting at. And I clearly remember the bench that I was sitting on. It was up against the wall or this tube of light. I knew that I was sitting there and waiting for something to happen. And as I was waiting, I felt like there was this part of me that left me and went to heaven, and that this new part of me came and entered inside of my body and my field. It was like my energy field felt really real. And I didn't really feel like I totally had a body. I felt like I was this field of energy that was around my body. And as I could feel all of this newness entering my field, it was like this new part of me. It felt like the real part of me. It almost felt like the part of me that had left and went to heaven, that wasn't really a real part of me. It felt like, I was just living out that aspect of my life because it was this human journey that I was on at the time. But then that left and went to heaven. And then it felt like I was becoming my real self. I was becoming the person that I was always meant to be. And the reason for incarnating on this planet was finally happening. I think I was 28 years old when this happened. Right now, at the time of this conversation, I'm 51. So this was a long time ago, but it felt like from birth to 28, I was living this other person's life that wasn't really my life. And all of a sudden, things started to make sense. I'm like, oh, that's why my life never felt great. That's why my life never felt like it was really mine, because that wasn't supposed to be like exactly how I was supposed to live for this whole lifetime. So, in an essence, that was a relief to release this part of myself that I felt like was temporary. Um, the other thing was that in the beginning, this angel had on a hat, sunglasses, and a jacket, but I could see this very bright light beaming from underneath the jacket, this light beaming from behind his sunglasses, light just beaming out of its head towards me, even though, and so that part for me was really confusing for a long time because I was like, why was this angel all dressed up? Um, the other thing that was interesting was that the souls that were coming and going in the waiting room, I felt like I knew some of them. So I wound up meeting a couple of the souls after I came back from my near-death experience. I went to the IONS, the International Association of Near-Death Study has support groups where you can go in person and meet other people that have had near-death experiences. So I went to my first in-person IONS group in Florida. And when I walked in the room and I saw all these people, I can cry right now just talking about this part of the story. When I saw a few souls in that room, I was like, I know you. I know you from heaven. It gives me goosebumps to think about the fact that our souls know each other from heaven, from this heavenly realm. We have heavenly family that's here on earth with us. And so that was one of the gifts coming back from my near-death experience, having the ability to recognize my soul family here on earth, knowing that I've been in this heavenly realm for eons. We've all been in this heavenly realm for eons, and we get to come here and have this human experience. We're surrounded by our soul family in this lifetime. And what we do up in heaven, to me, even though I didn't get to go down the hallway and go into the actual heavenly realm, even though I was only in the waiting room, I could feel heaven. I could see it, sense it, and feel it. I could taste it, touch it, smell it, see it. Like it was music. It was like the way that I saw it, it was like crystals everywhere. It was absolute 24/7 heavenly music. There was life, these plants, the natural kingdom of the world that we see here is almost like a replication of this thing that exists in heaven, the amount of life, the lushness, the beauty, the colors. Colors became very important to me on my healing journey because of the colors that I experienced on the other side. It's like a form of consciousness. It's an awareness. It's a healing. The reason why there's colors on planet Earth is because it's there. as a way to wake us up. It's a way to allow us to connect with our own consciousness and healing. So colors became very important. Sounds. I could not listen to the radio anymore. I could not watch television anymore at all. There were certain topics and conversations that I was no longer able to have with people when I came back from my near-death experience. Um, I don't know if a lot of people talk about this, but the amount of sensitivities that I had after my near-death experience, somebody would come up to me and try to have a conversation with me about something really horrible that was happening in the world, and I was not able to have the conversation. I would just start holding my head or crying or like, I was like, I'm sorry, I'm really sensitive right now, but I cannot talk about those topics. And I had to wind up telling people, I cannot go near a television. I cannot listen to the radio. I wound up, I was just normal meat eater. I literally woke up one day and I became vegan, like just certain foods. I have not drank any alcohol, had any drug, have not been able to, take a pill, or anything like that. Like my body just became so attuned to this frequency that's on the other side. And I felt like it took me a long time to be able to articulate these things, that I can articulate today because I kept feeling like, oh, something's wrong with me now. When am I going to get back to normal? But this is my new normal. So for anybody that's coming back, fresh from a near-death experience, just know that it takes a long, long time. It took me 3 years to heal my body. It took me 10 years to even start to begin to grasp what had just happened to me. Now I'm 20 years out, and now I'm just seeing all of the absolute wisdom and the meaning and the true depth and understanding of my near-death experience after 20 years of really diving in and spending a lot of my time and energy looking into this phenomenon, what happens to me, what happens to others, how to articulate these things, what's the purpose of it, what's the meaning, what do we do with all this wisdom now? What are we meant to do with this? Why does this happen?
That's an incredible story, and I really appreciate how you elaborated on how things changed when you came back. I do have a couple of questions, so I want to go back a little bit, and
Mm.
I want to talk about when you were in the accident. My first question is, when you said you floated sort of up above your body a little bit, were you instantly sort of in that hell realm, or did you linger around your body for a little while? Like, did you wonder what's happening, or was it sort of an instant, oh, I'm here sort of feeling?
Yeah, it was pretty instant for me.
Okay.
Um, yeah, it was like instantly from the car, and then I was instantly in that hell realm. Yeah, it
And
was.
did you recognize at some point, oh, I must be dead, I must have died, or was it more of like just accepting where you are now?
Yeah, I never really had that thought like that I was dead. Um, Yeah, it wasn't, it's interesting because when I hear so many other people's near-death experiences, they're checking out their body, they're realizing, like they're going through that help period. That never happened to me. And I'm not sure if it's because I died of a drug overdose with lung failure that it was like I didn't have that moment to like linger around. Like I was in such bad shape at that point that I just immediately went to the hell realm. Or yeah, so
Okay. And I mean, every experience is different too. So I'm not super surprised by that, but I wanted to ask. And so another question sort of about that initial beginning point of your story. It was a very traumatic accident, I understand. And so how did it come to be that you survived this? Because I know you were in the middle of nowhere. There was probably no one around. It was like 3 a.m. And so how was it that you were able to survive? Did someone call emergency services? Like how did you wake up and come to, like that sort of stuff?
yeah, so this was the part that for a long time I would never talk about this part of my experience because of how unusual it is. So it was 10 years after my near-death it was maybe like maybe 7 to 10 years, somewhere in there. I'm not exactly sure, but maybe about 7 to 10 years after my near-death experience, I finally got the memory back that I went through an actual car accident in the physical universe. I went through this fatal car accident to where my legs were crushed under the steering wheel. The angels and God has the ability to reverse accidents. And apparently they do it all the time. And so I finally got my own memory back of the car being, because for 10 years I was like, what is going on? Am I crazy? Like I had two distinct memories. I have the memory of a fatal car crash, and then I have the memory of being put back in my body, back in my car right before the crash happened. And so I actually went, I don't know if you've ever heard of, he's a channel and his name is Bashar. It's a conscious entity which is channeled by a man named Daryl Anka. I went to a Daryl Anka Bashar conference with one of my friends. And I had been to three of his conferences already. I had always risen my hand to try to ask a question during the first two conferences, and I didn't get picked on to ask a question. Only like four people get picked on to ask questions during his conferences. And then the third conference I went to, I had a question written out, which was not about my near-death experience. And I raised my hand and I got chosen. So I went up to the microphone to ask my question. Now I had my question planned out. I did not ask the question that I had planned out. I wound up asking him, how come every single time I get into a car, I feel like I'm literally dying? And then Bashar's answer to me, he said, that's because you did have the car accident and you did die in your car accident, but the higher ups were able to reverse that piece of the time and stick you back in the minute he said that, like I went silent. I wasn't actually able to talk or respond to him. It was like my whole body started reforming itself. Like all of a sudden, this great mystery had lifted off of me. And I felt so relieved. And I felt so like, oh my God, it finally made sense. It took me a long time to reconcile that because it's not something that's normally known here on Earth. And of course, I don't want to be looked at, as I'm crazy, but I think we have to get to the point where we're not afraid anymore. We need to be able to talk about these things in a safe space. Um, and actually, once I started to think about it more, it actually makes sense to me now. Think about it. There's so many people that have near accidents on the highway and there's something intervening. There's people that could have died in natural disasters and something intervenes. I've seen stories of people being in airplane crashes, where they literally hear a voice that intervenes, saves them from the crash. And they like, there's that man that lived during that train crash where everybody died and there was like he was so the angels are constantly working for us. The angels, of course, with anything else there's rules, right? Only so much interference can be had from, it needs to be appropriate in the eyes of God. God has to, from what I know now, God needs to come and say that it's appropriate for that angel to intervene, for God to intervene. If you're not set up to have an intervention in your life, not meaning that somebody's good or bad, because it has nothing to do, we're all good. Um, but our soul's growth, I think that it comes down to our soul's growth. All of our souls come here to grow a certain amount. There's literally a certain amount predestined that we're supposed to grow from this point to this point. We all have a character arc. In order for someone's soul to grow on their character arc, they might need intervention. They might need that for their life to be saved. So I just literally feel like my life was saved by God that day. And in order for me to have the soul's growth that I'm meant to have, that car accident needed to be reversed. And that's how I look about it. That's how it feels good in my soul. That's how it feels good in my heart. So I know there's other people out there that I've spoken to that have had situations like that where they felt bad for their whole life. They felt like, something's not right, or, they can't reconcile with something. And I think that is the reconciliation. The reconciliation is knowing that sometimes we get saved by God, and there is these holy interventions that sometimes need to happen in order for us to stay on the planet. If anything, it makes me feel more grateful. It makes me feel more devotional to my God, the higher ups, the people that I commune with on a spiritual level, because wow, look at that. Oh my gosh, it's truly, truly a miracle.
So you were saved from the accident portion through this miraculous intervention, which is miraculous. And so I guess my other question would be, you mentioned that it took you 3 years to heal your body. So can I infer then that you did have some injuries from the drug overdose itself that you needed to recoup from? Is that what you meant by that?
Yeah, I still had all the symptoms from the drug overdose, everything from, yeah, I just wasn't able to function. Like it, yeah, it was, yeah, the lung collapsing, yeah, not being able to compute properly, like trying to put two thoughts together. I literally couldn't think. I couldn't function. Yeah, it was absolutely horrible.
Did you end up spending any time in hospital at all after this experience?
That's when every day I was hearing a voice, and every single day this voice was telling me that I was going to be okay. And that was the voice of the angel that I met on the other side. That angel decided to stay with me every day for 2 years. I heard a voice and guidance, guiding me how to heal myself naturally. I did go to the emergency room, and while I was in the emergency room, I literally remember this doctor with his chart, and he's like, "You have this wrong. You're going to be on these drugs forever. We're diagnosing you with this." I mean, there was this list of stuff that I would never it was absolute grim. And I heard this voice in my head to get up off the table in the emergency room and to leave and to never go back to a doctor's office. And from that day, I got up and left the emergency room and have not stepped foot back into a doctor's office. And that voice, which was Archangel Raphael, guided me on how to heal myself naturally. And I was upset because I felt like, well, everybody else in the world has help. Why am I on my own trying to figure out how to heal my body? And then I realized, like, oh, I have angelic help. It was a master class. It was like more than going to medical school. I learned from the inside out how to heal myself, exactly what every nutrient and mineral does within the body, how we have to talk to our bodies, how we have to connect. Going from the grassroots up, I consider this to be like the new medical system. I think the wave of the future is becoming more natural. People are realizing that it's not sustainable the way we live our lives. There's people my age that had been gone, women that have already gone through menopause since they're in their 30s and 40s now. That's unheard of. There's people that are in their 30s and 40s getting cancer. There's everybody that I know has diabetes. Why is this? So there's what I want to see is like a happy coming together of the perfection of the medical system and what they do, and the perfection of the holistic health world needs to start working together, and find a happy medium. And there needs to be a new medical system for people to go into, to be able to heal themselves and have it not cost money and not be stuck in insurance. Yeah, so like I can go on and on, but my last 22 years of my life has been learning this new medical system and things that the world can start to offer to people, which doesn't cost anything. It's all affordable and it's all natural because it's all coming from the earth and it's coming from God.
I really think that there's so many great reasons to look at holistic health and more natural healing. And I know that you do this, like I know that you help people in that realm. And so I'm really excited to get to that part as well. But before we do, I just want to quickly go back to when you were in the heavenly realm, because I do have just a couple more questions about
Oh,
that.
great. Yeah.
And so my first question is, you've mentioned angels. You did mention like God or creator at some point. I just wonder, did you actually, when you were on that other side, did you actually encounter what you perceived as God or creator or source or any of those things? Or did you have a knowing that that presence was there, or was that just not in that realm for you? Like how did you perceive that?
Yeah, so what I was told, what I felt like the information that I received was that this as a whole, this period of time in life, that we have heaven and God within, yeah, within us. So it's almost like it feels like a switch. Like everyone has that switch within them, and we just have to turn on the switch. Like we just have to all start living that heavenly realm. We're bringing it here. So we're embodying this frequency here. And so God is within us, the angels are within us. Like we are everything. I don't know if you've heard of that quote of like, we are everything and nothing simultaneously, which I really feel is true. So it's cool to me now to look at the fact because there's what, 8 or 9 billion of us now on the planet. Um, and I think all of our journeys are unique. And yeah, so one of my teachers said it best. One of my meditation teachers, he was just talking about how, yeah, we're all embodying the essence of God. So yeah, I experienced it as being within me, and being able to bring that heavenly realm back here to planet Earth. So I
Okay,
don't
that's
feel like
cool.
it's in a religion or, yeah, so I feel like it's everything. It's literally, this is God, this moment, this now, everything, where you are, your environment, your home, your life, that is God. My life, my home, my environment, that is God.
I'm glad you mentioned the religion part because my next question is not a religious question, but sometimes it might be perceived as one. So I'm not asking you about your religion, but what I'm asking you is spiritually, did your spiritual beliefs change before versus after this incident for you?
Yeah, I think the way that it changed for me was that before I was looking outside mostly, which is nothing wrong with that. I think that was just the part of my journey where I was looking outward. And I think that's really valuable to look outward and see all of the expressions of God outside of us. And then coming back from the NDE, I was looking more inward, into myself and, just changing whatever I could change and embrace and accept about myself and learning those bigger lessons of acceptance, how acceptance is so powerful and how no matter what we're doing in our life and no matter what's going on, it doesn't change the fact that we have this perfection and that there is a perfection to everything that's happening in our lives. And even when the worst possible things happen, like for me, the drug overdose, my lungs collapsing, every single portion of my life was ripped away from me and I had to create a whole new life from the ground up. Like as painful as that was the actual blessing. When something painful is happening in our lives, that is the blessing, and the more we grow in our consciousness and our maturity along our conscious journey, we realize that that is the blessing. So it takes on a whole new light. It takes on a whole new agenda, in our lives.
So at one point you mentioned that you had the message, I guess, or the knowing that you were saved from this accident because your soul needed to continue growing. So were you given sort of the understanding that we come here to grow as souls? Was that an understanding that you were given, or did you sort of infer that?
Yeah, I felt like for me, like I felt like what I was on when I was in that waiting room of heaven. Um, okay, yeah. The way I can explain it is like when I felt this part of me leave, like that was very visceral. I'm sitting there on a bench in this waiting room of heaven. There's all these people coming and going. It's very busy. I'm recognizing everything. And then literally it felt like a layer of me peeled back and I could see this aspect of me walk down the tunnel and go to heaven. So like being super aware of that, this leaving, this part of me that was leaving, like for a long time, I had to make peace with that because I was like, well, what happened to that part of me? Is she okay? I didn't want her to feel like, like I talk about her as if she was an outside person because I do, yeah, like just, but I think that that happens to all of us, whether we have a near-death experience or not. There's always going to be aspects of us which we have to let go of, which return to the light. We're done with that portion of our life. And yeah, and then being able to embrace the new parts of us. That's why I feel like this whole aspect of death and birth, death and rebirth. That became like my whole still to this day. I'm like, I find excitement in people going through the death and the rebirth of the different aspects of themselves because that's where all the gold happens. That's where the best things, it's the people that resist change. It's the people that resist going through these different iterations of ourselves. They're just causing more suffering for themselves because they don't realize that Yeah, that's why we're here. That the whole, yeah. So for me, my belief is that the whole reason of why we come here and take an incarnation and we decide to become human when we could just stay in the light. You know, we don't have to come here. It's not mandatory. But I think the reason why we do stand up and say, "Hey, I'm gonna go to Earth. I'm gonna have this experience," is because, of course, being born, we have amnesia. We don't have the full picture on purpose when we come in, but, we get to go through these deaths and these rebirths, and having that growth process. And then as a soul, when we go back to the soul realm, I feel like we get to the point where we're like, oh my God, we just got to experience all these versions of God that we wouldn't have gotten to experience on the other side. So I just feel like it's a really unique aspect and way of experiencing, God and the all, being able to come in and do this journey.
Wow, that's a really cool way to explain it. I actually like that explanation.
Oh,
And so I
thanks.
guess you mentioned a part where you said like, you could stay in the light. And so that sort of leads me to my next question. So you're on the other side and you're having this experience. At what point do you realize that you don't get to stay in the light, that you have to return? And then on top of that, were you resistant to leave?
I was so resistant. Honestly, I did not want to come back at all. If it wasn't for my soul needing to have the soul growth that it's having right now, I for sure would have volunteered to stay over there because I didn't have a husband, I didn't have children, so it's not like a lot of people that have near-death experiences and they come back for their kids, they come back for their spouse. I didn't have anything tethering me to this place. So for me, it was only based on my soul growth of why I came back. So I was upset. For a long time, all I could do was cry and cry and cry and feel like I was being punished. Until one day I spoke to another one of my teachers. I've had a lot of different teachers that I've studied with since I've been back, but one of my other teachers said, he got me to realize he just said, it's not a punishment. This is your opportunity to love. Like everything that we think is a punishment is an opportunity to love. And that made so much sense to me because I could feel what I felt like on the other side. That was my opportunity to love myself. So often, so many of us grow up in, traumatic households where we're convinced that something's wrong with us or, just just normal everyday things, even just in life, will convince us that something, and none of that's true. So yeah, I was like, I'm going to take every opportunity to love now because it's true and it feels really good. So
And so when it was your time to return, despite being a little bit resistant, you did return. And so I guess my question would be, were you told by like say the angel, or did you have like a knowing, or were you just suddenly back in your body? Like how did it come to the point where it was like, okay, time to go?
yeah, so I remember feeling, I was saying how the piece of me came off and went down the hallway to heaven. And then right after that, this huge amount of energy came into my body when I was on the other side. It was like every part of my body lit up. Um, and it was that energy, the new energy, it felt like this new aspect of myself. It was like if there was a perfect like aspect of you already created and that aspect walks into your body and all of a sudden has all this energy that you've always wanted, that energy took me back to earth. So I think that's the energy that's also within me that's guiding me and guided me out of the emergency room and to heal myself and to, have all these realizations about my own soul's growth. So yeah, that same energy has just been with me every single day. And I think once that energy within me is done with its purpose here, then I will go back. Yeah, like I have nothing on death. I have nothing. Like the day I die, I'm going to be so excited. The day I get to go back, I'm so happy. So I feel like it's a graduation. It's a blessing. It's a gift. We get to graduate. Like at the end of someone's life, the only thing somebody should be saying to that person at the end of their life is, good job. You did a really good job here. That was great, and really affirming their soul that did such a great job here. And people need to hear that their lives mattered. People need to hear that they've had accomplishments while they were here, that, not just physical or material accomplishments, but it's like the inner work that we're doing is actually way more important because we take that with us.
That's such a positive message. And so, if it's okay with you, I'd kind of like to ask you a little bit about the work that you do now. Are you okay with that?
Oh, yeah, thanks.
So, I know that you do a lot in the realm of holistic healing and spiritual healing and that sort of thing. And so, I know that a lot of it came about after your NDE experience, so which is where it kind of ties into our little session today. So, do you want to just talk a little bit about what it is that you do and how you help other people?
Yeah. So when I came back from my near-death experience, really the thing that tethered me back to the earth was my body. My body needing help tethered me back here. So I think it was set up that way perfectly. So having to dive in and really learn how the body works, how it heals, exactly what creates disharmony in the body. I received so much wisdom. So like I have these like pillars, these pillars of health. And it really explains to someone what the pillars of their health are. So I take my clients through the pillars of health. I have the 5 pillars of health that I created. This is from what I experienced on the other side. And they're tied in with the 5 elements. So when people realize what the 5 elements, how the 5 elements coincide with their 5 pillars of health, it's like everything just starts to make sense. And then it also gives people serious spiritual growth and a consciousness expansion because more we connect to the world itself and realizing that, we're all one and all of this is harmony, that automatically starts to translate to the physical body. So I just, yeah, like I created this whole, it's called the Phoenix Pathway. I feel like we're all phoenixes, we all rise from the ashes. And I feel like every single one of us has a phoenix story, whether it's somebody going through a divorce, whether it's someone going through a health challenge, or somebody like me that went through a near-death experience. We all have to come into this aspect of ourselves where we rise up through the ashes and we gain the meaning, the wisdom, and the understanding of why it is that our soul has chosen that experience. Because I do feel like everything's predestined. Our soul already knows what challenges we're going to go through when we're in the human incarnation. Like my soul already knew before I was born that I was going to have a near-death experience this lifetime, and then that was going to be my quickest path to my soul's growth. So whether it's, I know a lot of women that I've worked with that have had, yeah, whether it was like stillborn or they have really bad chronic fatigue or, cancer, autoimmune diseases, like you name it. I do work with men as well, but just because you're a woman, I'm like referencing women. So yeah, when I give people these really easy building blocks, it's a re-education process. We all need to be re-educated. So it's like re-educating based on the concepts that I learned when I was on the other side, taking them through this Phoenix pathway. And then it always inevitably gets to the point where now they're their own best friend, they're their own best healer, they're sovereign. Now, at that point, once you're sovereign, if you want to interact with the medical industry, that's wonderful because you're not going there because you have to. You're not going there for life or death answers. You have your own answers. And then maybe if you're choosing like, oh, okay, great. I have my own sovereignty, my own answers. Now I'm going to go here for support because this is what's going to best support me, or I'm going to do this, or I'm going to do that. So yeah, I give people back their sovereignty. That's what was given to me. So what was given to me and gifted to me beautifully by God in the heavens, then I gift that to others that go through this beautiful Phoenix journey. And then it's something that people have forever, and then they can go give it to their kids or their community or their family. Then they become that pillar of light for the people around them. And I really want to take this process because for the last 15 years, I've just been taking clients, through this process. But just last year, I got this download to start offering it to medical professionals. Because there's a lot of angels that work in the medical field. There's a lot of people that, their dharma was to doctors, nurses, these people that are in the trenches helping people every day. I have so much respect for them. They're light workers, they're star seeds. There's a reason why they're in that field. And so, I'm just kind of now thinking that the world is ready. We're having evolution now happening on this planet. There's no more separation between us. We're all realizing that, we're one. So we're all brothers and sisters. Yeah. So I'm excited to see how that goes, bringing that out to the medical field.
I think you're right about the fact that the world is more ready for this type of thing right now. And so the reason I asked this next question is because I think there's people all over the world who might be interested in what you do. And so my question would be, do you only see clients in person or do you see people online? Like, can people connect with you from anywhere? Is that like a thing that you do?
Yeah, most of the people I see are, yep, on Zoom. So most of the people I work with are remote, so people can be anywhere in the world. I work with people in India, in Indonesia, Russia, all over. So when somebody has a genuine desire to heal and somebody really wants to become their own sovereign healer for themselves, yeah, as long as that genuine desire is there, I can work with anything, any ailment, anything at all that's going on with the physical body, the mind, the emotions, the mental health, traumas, anything like that. And it's a beautiful process. It's similar to having a near-death experience because it's almost like your this own aspect of you almost is like in heaven, so to speak. You get to be in this, heavenly guided realm, and you just come out with your truest self, your truest self. I feel like we all want to become our truest self in this lifetime. I know many of us are declaring, like, okay, I'm here. I want to master whatever I'm meant to master this lifetime. So yeah, we work online and everything that I give away. Like right now on my YouTube channel, I have like how to detox your body. Like there's so much stuff that's for free. I try to put it all, on YouTube, and then I have an NDE wellness Instagram page where I'm going to start just putting all how to heal NDEs and how to go through that process. I have a free NDE and trauma healing guide, which I put all the most beautiful basics that you would need to really heal any aspect of a trauma or a near-death experience. So that's on my website. That's www.consciousbreakthrough.com, the free NDE and trauma healing guide. I think that's a really good place to start.
Okay, so if people are interested in finding out more about what you do, they can visit that website. That was actually what I was going to ask you next. But also, you mentioned that you have a YouTube channel. Do you want to share that so people could find you there?
Yeah, so that's under my name, which is Yoga Premananda. And then it says Conscious Breakthrough in parentheses. That's the name of my business and website. So yeah, I would love to see you guys and anyone at all that is at a point where they might just have questions and they just want support or they just want to have a conversation because they're trying to figure something out about a trauma or a near-death experience. I have a free 20-minute call where we can connect on the phone or on Zoom for 20 minutes, and we can just talk for 20 minutes. You can ask me whatever questions you might have. If you're just trying to figure out what direction to move in, if you want to kind of know what's next for you, yeah, we can have a beautiful 20-minute conversation, absolutely free. I want to connect with as many people as possible because I do think it's really important that we're all connecting right now. It's building a beautiful grid around the planet, which is really helping to shift a lot of things for people to become more empowered.
Okay, that's really a kind offer. And so for anyone who's interested, I will link your information in the video description, so your website and your YouTube page, if that's okay.
Oh, great.
Um, but otherwise, yeah, I want to thank you so much for coming on, and I think you did a really fantastic job of sort of articulating your whole experience and what you do. And so, yeah, thank you so much.
Thank you so much. This has been so wonderful being in your presence. I really appreciate it. Thanks. Have a great day.